If you make good money, have kids, and are trying to build wealth, you've probably asked yourself at least one of these questions. How much should I be investing? Should I be paying off my debt first? What do I actually do with the money sitting in my savings account? What happens if the market crashes? And maybe the biggest question of all, am I actually doing this personal finance thing correctly? So today, I'm going to be starting something called the Wealthy Parent Pod. I'm going to be taking real questions from real parents asking about their money and give you the best answer based on what I've learned managing my own family's finances and helping other families do the same. I'm a finance professional who spent the last 15 plus years working in private and public companies. I paid off $43,000 of debt in just 13 months and used that momentum to build up an over $800,000 net worth. And really the one thing that I've learned is that most families don't need more financial information. They need to know what to do first. Let's dive into the questions. The first question comes in from Mike. I have debt. I want to invest. I want to save for my kids. And I want to travel. How do I know what to prioritize? Well, Mike, this is a great question. And actually, it's one of the more common ones that I get. As you can imagine, because there's so many fun, sparkly, exciting ideas out there in the world, we want to do it all, right? So it's like, how do I prioritize the things that I want to do? The problem isn't that you have too many goals, in my opinion. I think having a lot of goals is great. I think what has helped me in my personal finance journey is how can I connect all the different goals that I have and sort of like put them through like one string where it's like if I take similar actions, they're all going to occur. And I was just playing with my my 5-year-old. He's got this like bead set with like, it's kind of like you can make your own necklace thing. And I was thinking about this analogy when I was doing that because it was like each one of the beads is like a financial goal. And like, what's the one string that we need to put through so that they all connect and they all happen? And so the first thing that I would do, Mike, is just figure out your financial situation. So it's like, okay, what is your maybe net worth? Like, what do you owe? What do you own? That way it's just on paper, we can see broadly where your numbers are. Then I want to know your actual monthly cash flow. So like how much is coming in? Like how much do you make? How much is going out? And most importantly, how much is currently left over? So I want you to do this exercise now. And if you're thinking, based on your question, it kind of seems like maybe you don't think you have enough cash flow to be able to prioritize, to like put money towards all these things. So right now I'm thinking that maybe what you could probably do is something called a 3-month look back. You look back 90 days of your expenses. You just kind of copy paste your statements, credit card, bank, throw them in AI. It's going to give you a nice little quick table, bada bing, bada boom. Less than 30 minutes for all your accounts. And it's just going to simply show you where you've been spending your money. And then you look at this list. If I go over your question again, it's like debt, invest, save for kids, travel. So like you have some financial goals there. You have some life goals there with the travel. And I guess kids is financial and life. But like that's what you want to do. Write down a list of the things that matter to you the most. I call them your North Star goals, and then prioritize them. Like physically sit down and write them out. Just first write them out and then reorder them. And just doing that exercise alone is going to tell you which one to do. Now I will say that I have a pretty clear roadmap here that I just like to share broadly, generally with people. This is not financial advice, meaning this might not work in your situation. I'm not too sure, but this is called the waterfall method. And basically what I want to do here is just walk you through like, what's the best way to kind of prioritize your money? And then maybe that can help you sort of think through this. This is based on like interest rates and tax stuff. So it's like, it might not be applicable to you, but emergency reserve. Okay. That's the first thing. We got to have an emergency fund. Have some sort of starter, right? And that way you can kind of work through that. High interest debt. Got to get rid of that. You mentioned paying off debt. You didn't say what it was. I'm going to assume it was either a student loan, a car loan, or a credit card. So it's like, if it's a credit card, if it's above even like 8%, I would say, got to get rid of that first because that is the biggest wealth killer that I see in the families that I work with. Then 401k match. So if you have an employer, simply just match whatever they are telling you that they're going to match. So just contribute that amount. And then maxing out your Roth IRA. So in 2026, it's a $7,500 max. So you just figure out that divided by 26. If you have 26 paychecks, for example, and you just kind of like automate that coming out. Great. Kids' future education is coming up next. So the 529 education plan. And then maxing out your 401k and other things as well. But like, this is just a general scope here, and this might not work for you. Like if you put on your list that your kid's education is first, then like, who am I to tell you? Who am I to tell you like what to do? So like, that's why your goals are important. And I work towards, when I'm working with families, it's like, what do you want? Don't pay attention to the waterfall method. It's like, what do you want? And I will explain why, specifically in your situation, I think maybe this could work for you. Or if I don't think that, I will tell you that too. But that's kind of my answer there. Just kind of think through what matters most to you. How much extra cash flow do you have to be able to push to that thing? Great question, Mike. Let's get to the next one. Guys, real quick, I've opened up some spots in my Wealthy Parent program for busy families looking to get more clarity in their finances, find extra money each month without making more, so that they're able to put more of their hardworking money towards their financial goals and just feel like they're winning with their money. If that sounds interesting, any of that, there's a link below this video to book a call directly with me, and we could start your path to becoming a wealthy parent. I'll see you there. All right, question number 2 is coming from Danielle. Should I invest while I'm paying off debt? Oof. Okay, a couple heavy hitters, a couple common questions right off the gate. This one depends heavily on the interest rate, kind of like I was just speaking with Mike about that, where I like the idea of like that 7-8% as the cutoff for investing and paying off debt. So if you have credit card debt, 20%, 28%, that is very obvious. Please, let's just get rid of that. So order of operations is get the emergency fund, at least an amount that you think will cover the majority of expenses. I don't want you sitting there right away and doing 3 to 6 months of your expenses, because like that could take a while depending on how much income you have and cash flow. So I really like to have, when I was paying off $43,000 of debt in 13 months, for example, my wife and I, we had $1,500 as our emergency fund, and that allowed us, we felt safe enough to just push everything towards the debt. Now, that number could be different for you. I want you to analyze that and figure out like how much the biggest expenses that you had were unexpectedly over the year that were unique and different to your normal day-to-day life, and then just kind of plan for that being the case. So it could be 1,000, could be 3,000. I don't know. For you, you'll just have to figure that out. But I personally don't love the idea of like investing aggressively when I have too much debt. Now, if you have a mortgage, that's completely different. That's like its own different category because it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I definitely want you still investing if you have a mortgage. But in terms of that line, yeah, I think that 7-8% is pretty good. So without knowing your situation of like what the debt is, again, I'm going to assume it's either a car loan, a student loan, or credit card debt. So the credit card debt, immediately get rid of that. The other two, if they kind of fall underneath that, then I would say you're safe to invest. But also look at the opportunity costs. So in my free personal finance community, which is linked on the homepage of my YouTube channel, by the way, I have a debt payment calculator. And in there, you can kind of look at if you were to add more to your debt, how much faster would it get paid off? And sometimes, depending on the interest rate, it is a significant amount of money. Like you could be saving like decades of time and tens of thousands of dollars of interest. Or if the interest rates are lower and even putting an extra $500,000 extra a month only really saves you like a few months, maybe it's just you're better off putting that towards investing at the time. So I do think understanding the opportunity cost, and this is something that I work with specifically with the families that I work with, because a lot of people, as you imagine, a lot of people have debt and a lot of people want to invest. So this is a very common question. But yeah, I think just understanding that 7-8% line and then your sort of risk aversion and opportunity costs, Danielle, but amazing, great question. And before we get to the next question here, if you guys want your question answered about personal finance, saving money, paying off debt, investing, whatever the thing is, drop it on this video in the YouTube and I will answer some of the best questions in the next version of the Wealthy Parent Pod. All right, next question here from Ryan. What should I do if the stock market crashes? Whoa, we'll definitely turn on the news, right? Watch all the financial content that you can and just be very nervous and scared. Definitely not. And definitely don't watch the news, by the way. That was all a joke. The real answer is, what are those two? One, maybe you should expect the market to go down. We should all expect to go down, the market to go down. Investing, yes, there is some risk with investing. And I'm going to share a stat in a second that's going to completely, hopefully flip your mindset on that. But two, I think there's a difference between a market crash and a market drop or fall or whatever. And it also depends on, there's a lot of things here. It also depends on what you're investing in. Because I'll hear maybe coworkers or sitting at Thanksgiving and people are talking about their investments or something like that, and I hear like the tremendous like drops and ups and downs. I was like, you're not investing into like the stock market. You're investing in like crypto, probably like some shit coin, or you're probably investing in, I don't know, what other, like you're day trading, or you're just like individually company or penny stocks. You're just going all over the place. So it's like, first, like, what are you investing in? I think is a great question to answer. But at the end of the day, and a lot of people don't know this, so keep this quiet, but the stock market has had a 100% recovery rate. Think about that. We always hear all the doom and gloom about the stock market, how it's super risky, right? But then you look and it's like we're always at like an all-time high. So yeah, this is the S&P 500. It's kind of the gold standard of investing the US stock market. It's just the top 500 companies in the US, and it's sort of just everyone competes to be in that, and the cream rises to the top. People fall out. So you get the best companies in the US on the US stock market, right? But look at this over time. Like, we are currently at an all-time high. And you basically just look, and like every time there was a downward thing, or the pandemic where people panicked and understandably so, but like a year later plus, like it was crazily at an all-time high. So it's just like the stock market's always going to go up. The stock market will always go down, but at the end of the day, it has a 100% recovery rate, and there just aren't that many things in the world that have that kind of recovery rate or anything like that. So it's just insane. Is investing a risk? Yeah. But is it also like a pretty proven, guaranteed solution to building wealth? Yeah. So I would say, Ryan, don't worry about that. If you're in it for the right reasons, then you're not going to care, and you just shouldn't even really be looking. You shouldn't even be looking. I haven't looked at my stuff in probably been a couple weeks, because I'm not trying to like take money out or anything like that. It's not a short-term thing. I don't need to pay bills with it, right? It's just like I'm building this for me and my family's future. All right, question 4 from Priya. What brokerage should I use? And what should I actually invest in? Okay. I'm going to give an answer that probably doesn't help you, but I would say it sounds like you're just starting. So I would just say, for question 1, what brokerage should I use? It almost doesn't matter. Now, I could give you a more complex answer and tell you to look into like the fees and do a bunch of research there, because at the end of the day, you would probably save a little money. Like, for example, I use Vanguard for most of our stuff, and it's because at the time when I started doing it, they just had the lowest fees, meaning I get to keep more of my money, which is great. That's what we want to do. But I would say not starting because of these questions, I think, is just kind of silly, because it's if you never get started, you can't learn from the mistakes and everything like that. And I get maybe there's some friction of like starting on one platform and then realizing it might not be amazing and moving to another one. But I'd rather just have people take action, move forward, make mistakes, learn from it, and move on. Because at the end of the day, time is the biggest asset when it comes to building wealth. So if you waste time thinking about these silly solutions, it's just not going to work out to you. Now, in terms of what you should actually invest in. So quickly, this is the waterfall method, right, that I was speaking about earlier on a question. And this doesn't answer the question of like, what exactly do I invest in? Like, tell me. But really, this is the order of operations. So if you have a 401k through your employer, do it. The fund that will most likely be like investing in, or that's kind of default, is a target fund, and it's going to be, say, 2050, 2055, 2060, whenever you're projected to retire. These are not that efficient, but if you're just starting, again, like, who cares? Like, just start. Don't worry about optimizing anything like that, and then jump to a Roth IRA. The problem that people make in here is that they put money in a Roth IRA, but they forget that it has to be invested. So you have to like put it in the Roth IRA, and then you have to invest it into something. After that, we have the 529 education, finishing the 401k, HSA, brokerage, right? So this doesn't necessarily answer that question. So I can come back to your question again, because the bigger lesson to me isn't like, oh, hey, what's your favorite ETF, right? It's, do you even understand what you're investing in? That's the kind of the biggest question here. Like, are you being diversified? Are the fees reasonable, like we talked about? Does it match your goals? Something that no one ever thinks about. and does it match your timeline and maybe your risk tolerance, right? So again, if you need the money by tomorrow, like it's going to be a different answer than I want the money in 30 years, right? And then we automate it. And so without knowing your specific situation, I personally don't like when people are just like, oh, invest in this. Like, this is it. Like, I could share you what I am investing in, but I don't think that helps you because it might not be what you want or need or, whatever, the risk side of things. So I would say, like, this is something that I would definitely work specifically with when I'm coaching someone and a family with their money and everything like that, depending on all these factors. There's so many factors that go into it, but this is just how I've approached my own investing. I've sort of educated myself, learned from others who are maybe a little bit ahead of me, and then I just started. Just start. So if you're watching this video after I'm answering you, just start. Next question from Tasha. I have a credit card I barely use anymore. Should I close it? Good question, Tasha. I would say yes and no. Great answer, right? All right, that's the end of the question. Thanks, guys. No, not necessarily, but also probably. If the card has like no annual fee or anything like that, you could just simply stop using it. You could cut it up, shred it, throw it in the garbage, and just stop using it. And then eventually it will just fall off. Or you could just close it now. So it's kind of like, I guess you have three options. Closing it now, okay, your credit score will be dinged. So I think you're asking this question because of credit score. And for me, I'm not a huge lover of credit score in terms of like trying to optimize it or hack the credit score. Like for me, there's just like a simple process that if you follow and take the simple actions and you build the system and you put all the inputs in, the credit score will just inevitably go up over time. So the one option is just closing it now, out of sight, out of mind, right? And just getting rid of it, cutting it up or putting it in a drawer, whatever, shredding it, and then it will eventually fall off. You'll get an email in a couple of years that your credit score went down because, whatever, your credit card, your credit utilization was decreased and blah, 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 whatever. Or you could just keep using it and every couple months you just like buy something with it. I just think that's so, a lot of people like to do this and they hold like 12 credit cards. It's just crazy. Because for me, I just want things to be simple. I want things to be so simple. And when you're literally juggling 12 credit cards, it's like, holy crap. And then you have to remember which one it is. And it's just like all this mental bandwidth. I've seen people have like spreadsheets of like, oh, when it's going to like expire or like when I have to use it next by. And it's just like this crazy system. It's like, what are we doing? So to answer your question, because it seems like you care about credit score, I would say push it off, cut it up, shred it, and then you'll have a couple years to kind of beef up the credit score before it gets dinged a little bit. And I would say you're fine, but the fact that you're asking this question probably means that you're on the right track to something here. Question in from Chris. Ooh, great name. My wife wants to stay home with the kids, but we don't know if we can afford to live on one income. How do we figure that out? Okay, this is one of my favorite types of questions because the answer isn't yes or no. And by the way, really freaking cool that you're even thinking about this. Very cool. This is something that we're not doing, just to FYI, but how I would figure out anything about if you can afford to live on one income, afford to put it towards here, the cash flow, is running the numbers. So how much do you guys take home after taxes? Like what are you bringing in? What's going out? Do you have a list of like, what are your fixed expenses? What are the variable expenses? Do you guys currently have daycare? It sounds like you do. Like, what are all the things? It doesn't sound like maybe that there's a system in place of what the cash flow is doing, where it should be going, when it should be going. Like, what are all the things? So what I usually recommend people do first is what I call a 3-month look back. So 90 days of how you spent your money the last 90 days. So look at bank statements, credit card statements. You could just kind of copy paste the data, throw it into AI. It's going to give you a nice little table summary. Depending on how many accounts you have and how versed you are with AI, it could take you anywhere up to 30, 40 minutes, potentially, at the worst case scenario. And what that's going to do is just show you where your money has been going. From there, you can see like, okay, this is where our money's been going. And then I want you to write down a list. I call this your North Star goals of things that matter to you the most. What I want you to do is just rough draft first just spitball everything that matters to you. Life goals, financial goals, non-negotiable spending, okay? And then below that, I want you to reorder it. So the first exercise is don't think, just write what seems most important. You might have a lot of things on there, so the second list is kind of condensing it, because at the end of the day, if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority, right? So if we have a priority of, say, like, you're going to have to make some sacrifices probably, because if you're thinking like, oh, I don't know if we can do this, you guys are probably going to have to cut out some stuff. Now, you will get the benefit if your wife stays home with the kids. I don't know if they're currently in daycare or like after school programs or anything like that you guys have to do because you were both working. Like, you would instantly save that. So we would factor that in as well. But what does the monthly cash flow look like? That's kind of the end goal here. What's the income? Can it afford, like, once you take your salary, Chris, minus the roof over your head, all the utilities stuff, like all the need items, groceries for the kids, the family, it's like, what are you left with at the end for like life? Are you left with anything? Right? So this is the decision that you have to make. And sometimes just by doing that quick little exercise of the 3-month look back, the North Star goals, and then sort of just reviewing everything, it will quickly tell you like, ooh, there's actually no way that we could do this, or like, I don't know, I think this could work, right? Because if it seems like there's a big buffer, maybe you're potentially forgetting some things. So it's like, I have a little cushion here. But if you like see it as like, wow, we would need to find like $2,000 off or something, and it's like, it doesn't seem feasible, then you have your answer. And again, you could probably figure all this out, do all that exercise in like under an hour. It is well worth the exercise, but keep me updated on that. Question from David. My spouse and I have completely different spending habits. One of us saves everything, and the other actually likes spending money. How do we budget without constantly fighting? Okay, great question, David. And first, I do like a lot of the money questions here. This is more of a behavior psychological question than like a tactical question. Because I think first, I don't know, you guys both came from different walks of life, right? So however you guys grew up, whatever, is how you're probably programmed to think about money. So one of you saves, one of you spends. And I don't think you should each like try to change each other or turn your spouse into you, or your spouse doesn't want to turn you into like them. My wife and I would say that we are somewhat different in terms of like, I am well, I don't know if you can tell by this content, right? But like, I am the person thinking about like the financial goals and like the saving and putting money aside. My wife does a really great job of like keeping the household together, keeping all the shit together, really thinking about like what our family needs and what we need to be doing and all this other stuff. So like, she's really great in the present, the current, and I'm more of like the future thinker. So it kind of sounds like that's the divide here. But if you're asking the question, it maybe seems like it's a problem because you guys aren't on the same page. The thing with my wife and I is like, we are on the same page, and we just, not that we have different responsibilities, because we just everything's communication, but like, we both kind of know what we're best at, and we both kind of let the other person do that while still like being involved in the other aspect, if you will. So it's like, it's not like she does all the day-to-day stuff and I have no idea what's going on, and it's not like I do all the future stuff and she has no idea what's going on. We talk about finances all the time. So I really think I think what you guys need to do is schedule in a 10-minute financial conversation. Just start like once a week, every Sunday or something. You guys just sit on the couch, you put it in your calendars, right? 7 p.m., right? Just before you start binge watching Netflix or whatever you guys do on Sunday night. Just a 10-minute conversation every single week about like, what happened last week? What went well? What didn't go well? What would we like to keep doing next week? What would we like to change next week? And it's just those simple questions. And then you guys are simply aligned in the following week, and it's going to just force you to talk about other goals. Because when you say like, ooh, I didn't like that we did this, like I was kind of expecting us to do XYZ, and your spouse would be like, well, here's why I did this, because of XYZ thing. And it's like, okay, well, did we forget about, we wrote down, maybe that's what you could do, like shared goals or something like that. You guys both write down a list, because you might have more things intersecting than you think, right? So anyway, I think it just sounds like a conversation needs to be had in multiple. So like when my wife and I were paying off $43,000 worth of debt in 13 months, we had like literally a financial meeting. Every month was our once a month was our like spreadsheet update, because she had debt in her name, I had debt in my name, we had shared debt. It was crazy. So it was very stupid. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone, meaning the having all the debts. But we basically just sat down for a few minutes, we input all the spreadsheets, and then we just talked about what we saw. And then also throughout the month, we didn't just meet once a month. We were talking about other things, because both of our goals were like, how do we get rid of this debt? So everything else, nothing else really mattered. We had like one shared massive goal that we were both trying to reach. So I do think that like that would be helpful. Like how can both of you benefit from the same thing, work towards the same thing, and then bada bing, bada boom. And if you each have some money in the budget to kind of play around with and fuck around with, it doesn't matter. Like if one of you likes to golf and one of you likes to bowl and one of you likes to do their toes, David, I'm looking at you. You seem like a pedicure kind of guy. Then do that. Schedule that into your budget, put it in, and set up your money so that you both feel like you're winning with the ways that you want to win. All right, question from Brittany. How much money should we have saved before having kids? Okay, great question. Great question. And I think this is it's also a dangerous question. Especially if you take it too literally. Like if you were expecting me to give you a number and be like, oh my God, the cheat code before having kids is X dollar amount saved. That's crazy. And I'm gonna give you a very biased answer because I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I can honestly say that I would much rather be broke and poor and trying to figure things out with the family that I have than rich and on yachts and traveling the world with no kids. Just to be very clear, I would trade nothing for my kids. So like, I think a lot of parents have the same sentiment where it's like kids first and like, it almost doesn't matter. Like it almost doesn't matter. And actually having kids for my wife and I, the reason why we went on that journey to pay off the debt and we did it as quickly as possible is because we sat down and we were having a conversation about like, ooh, is it time to like start thinking about having kids? And we looked at our life and we're like, what are the things, not just money related, but like, what are the things that could potentially hold us back from being the best parents that we could be? And we went deep because it was even like relationship stuff. Like, we really wanted to like open this thing up. It's like, what could F this thing up? What could F up our kids, right? And the thing that we landed on was like, we just like gotta get rid of the debt. Like being a little more financially stable, we'll call it, feels like a great idea. So it was actually a forcing function for us to figure out and just pay it off. We were just paying off the minimums. We were being good little boys and girls, just paying off the minimums, just kind of treating it like a monthly recurring bill, not trying to get rid of it, just being perfectly okay paying other people our hardworking money, right? The interest. And so my biased answer for you is, who cares? If you guys are thinking about having kids, have kids. Like genuinely have kids. And then guess what? There's a time capsule on those little suckers. So that will be a forcing function. Wow, congratulations, I'm pregnant. Crap, now we got to save a lot of money, right? It's going to be a forcing function and you guys will figure it out. But maybe an early congratulations, Brittany? Question mark? Question from Jordan. I have $40,000 sitting in savings. I'm scared to invest it because I don't want to make the wrong decision. What should I do? First, this is more of a psychological question. It seems like there's some underlying factors with your money that for some reason is holding you back, Jordan. And having $40,000 in savings is not a bad thing. It is probably too much cash. It doesn't sound like you have anything invested, but kudos on getting to $40,000. A lot of people don't have that. The average American couldn't even afford a $1,000 emergency if it came up without going into debt. So you're 40x above average. So that is amazing. You've done the hard part. Now, the thing is like, you just need to set up a system, right? You need to tell your money what it needs to do. And I know you're like, I want to invest, but what do I do? I like to share this as a general rule of thumb. This is the waterfall method. And so what I like to do when I'm speaking generally in a video like this, where I'm not speaking to one individual person, this is kind of the outline that I would have someone walk through when it comes to their money. So like cash flow goes into emergency reserve. So Jordan, you've already figured that out. You've got $40,000. I would say plenty for an emergency reserve. A good rule of thumb, as you probably know, maybe not, but 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses. It's very common that a lot of people recommend that. So you already have that. Now, in terms of like, do I save 3? Do I save 6? It really depends on your risk factors. How many other life things do you have? Like, do you have a mortgage? Do you have kids? Do you have, does it seem like maybe you're going to possibly lose your job soon? Like, is it stable? Like, all these factors can kind of come into that. But let's just say for shits and giggles, it's 3 months, right? So figure out how much you spend each month times 3. Keep that in your emergency reserve. High interest debt. You didn't mention it. I don't know if you have any debt. If you have debt, get rid of that first, even if it's with like the rest of that $40,000, because guess what? You're paying a ton of money to strangers for the interest on the debt. Get rid of it. That's not going to help you get wealthy. And then after that, a lot of people forget that their 401k like is investing. So I'm not sure if you have a 401k plan with an employer or anything like that, but like people forget when they're like, I haven't been investing. It's like, well, do you have a 401k? Yes. 401k is investing. So definitely at least match what your employer provides. Sometimes it's 1% and it's terrible. Sometimes it's 6% and it's amazing. Most of the time it's 2 to 4%, we'll say, of an employee match program. So put in your 401k, whatever the company wants to match. You might see other things online about how to optimize investing in your 401k because you're likely investing into what's called a target fund. Basically, you kind of pick approximately when you think you're going to retire, and then from there, it's just this target fund, and they're a little more expensive. And so what I want you to do, though, is avoid all of those thoughts because those can be a little more complex. You haven't even started. I really just want people to start taking action and investing because time is the biggest factor when it comes to investing. And so when you're sitting around thinking and you're not doing, then that's a problem. And it's harder to build wealth as you get older. So let's say a year goes by, you're like, oh, I should really do this investing thing. Another year goes by, you're just losing all that opportunity to compound your money. Okay. Then after that is maxing out a Roth IRA. And this is a little more flexible in terms of investing. So I like this. There's a max, though, of $7,500. So you put money into the Roth IRA, and then in the Roth IRA, you have to invest it. I know part of your question is like, what do I invest in? I like just broad market index funds. I use Vanguard. So it's just things that are like investing in the US stock market. You could have different positions where you have a majority of it into, say, US stocks, the rest of it in international. You could mirror the S&P 500, which is just like the standard sort of top 500 companies in the US, and Vanguard has their own sort of fund for that kind of mirrors it. And there's other funds, there's like growth funds. So it really depends on like how much risk you want to take. It sounds like if you're just starting, I would just do something super simple. That's what I've done. I've just kept it very, very simple, but it really depends on kind of what I help families with in the Wealthy Parent Program. Is I help them understand by their answers, by the way, like what their risk tolerance is and everything like that. It really just depends. And then from there, I don't know if you have kids you didn't mention, but like the 529 education savings plan would be next, and then maxing out the 401k, HSA if you qualify, and then just a standard brokerage account at the end. Like this is the proven path of, getting wealthy, becoming a wealthy parent. And so I hope that answers your question a little bit, but definitely you could check out the link below this video to book a call with me. And this is what I literally walk through, customized for everyone that I work with. Question from Jordan. Another Jordan. How common is the name Jordan? All right, sorry. What's the difference, or maybe it's the same Jordan. Jordan's got a lot of questions. What's the difference between a Roth IRA, a 401k, and a brokerage account? I know I should be investing, but I have no idea where to start. Got it. No, this is a great question, Jordan. And this is where I think a lot of people do get overwhelmed because people start asking like, oh, which ETF, which stock, which brokerage? And that's kind of the question that the previous Jordan, or maybe you, had just before this. Like, what do I even invest in? And they're skipping the first question is like, what account should the money actually go into? So real quick, like a 401k is a employee-sponsored retirement account. So a 401k you can get through an employer. If you're not a W-2 employee, then this would not apply to you. An IRA is an individual retirement account. That's what IRA stands for. And there's a couple different versions of that, but just a taxable brokerage account, it's flexible investment. You have a little more options, and they don't really have the same retirement account restrictions that, say, a 401k would. And they each have different tax treatments, different purposes. There's a Roth IRA, there's a traditional IRA. And like I was mentioning to previous Jordan, the order really matters, so I'm not going to go through it again, but the waterfall method, so the emergency reserve, the debt, the 401k match, the IRA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last one is the brokerage, which is just like a super flexible, anyone can invest in this, that you can invest in anything you want, basically. And it's there's not as many tax advantages, like you pay taxes on it when you're like withdrawing it and stuff like that. There's not really a tax advantage to it, but basically it's the last one that I would probably do. I would probably settle in on the other ones first. And I don't like the idea of just throwing random money into accounts. So you want to give every single dollar that you have a job. And that's actually one of the biggest lessons from my own journey, because I didn't build, but my wife and I didn't build the wealth that we had by finding some magical investment. Like, we never tried to pick a stock in our entire life or do anything like that. We just literally kept it simple using the waterfall method. We created cash flow in the front end to be able to pump money into that. So we're always keeping an eye on where we're spending our money, what we're doing with it, what's the purpose of, like, why we're even working. Like, we're spending all this time working and making money. Like, we have to put it to work. We have to. We don't have to. We want to, right? Investing is the reward for building the great cash flow. So first you create the money, you work hard, and then you try to find ways to increase the amount of money that you're putting towards your future goals. A standard percentage that I want you to think about, Jordan, is 15% of your gross income. So basically your salary. So if you make $100,000 a year, I want you to figure out how to put $15,000 a year towards your goals. Do you think you can do that? I know you can. And that's kind of the gold standard. And eventually, once you give your money a job and you let it compound and you let it do its thing and you just don't touch it, you don't freak out when the market goes down a little bit, eventually your money will start doing some of the work for you and then a lot of the work for you. It's pretty exciting to see.